Oh, it's good to be back, guys. We are some young guys.
And welcome to our podcast.
Yes,
I'm Carlos.
I'm Lemac. We're some young guys ready to solve the world's problems in a podcast.
That's right.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. We took a week off, basically. He was at Disney. I was working my butt off trying to make more money so that I can invest more into this and myself and all kinds of different things and just become better and provide more. How was Disney?
It was pretty good. It was actually very fun, very family oriented with my lady's family and stuff. I haven't been there like in 20 years. And
so since you were like 8 or 9?
Yeah, since I was like 8. And it's funny because it's like, this whole time I was just clowning Disney. I'm like, man, people are weird. They're like super old and going there and stuff. Which, yes, but I went there and I was like, holy shit, this is fun. And then, I'm not trying to be like biased or anything or against anyone or anything. I apologize if I said something that was mean, but shit, I feel like everyone should go there at least once.
Yeah, at least once. I mean, like, it's a good experience to see what's there, and I'm sure there's a lot of rides that are really fun. It's a monument to the culture that has built the adults of today's age, I think, because they've got Star Wars stuff, they've got Pirates of the Caribbean, they've got all kinds of different things, and Disney, in a lot of ways, whether fortunately or unfortunately, however you feel about it, has been a very prominent and large portion of what has built American culture today. Disney has been in everything.
Definitely.
So to not go for any reason specific, there's a little bit of a buzzing
I hear that
I'm hearing, and I'm not entirely sure where it's coming from. I'm going to just make sure that all my connections are good. I don't know where that's coming from. Hopefully it's not too loud to you guys. I don't know. There's just some noise somewhere. Anyways, we'll try and figure that out in post, but I don't know.
There?
Maybe.
Yeah, that was it.
That seemed to fix it. All right, cool. It's gone. As far as I can tell. Anyways, no, it's not gone. It's back.
I think it's
my mic.
wait.
No, that was my headphones. Let me hang on one sec. That one is yours. If I can find it. If I can find the hole.
There you go.
Seems like it's gone.
Okay.
Cool.
Oh, fuck me.
Come on, man. You got to just keep your feet in, dog.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm gonna check that just to make sure that we're still centered in frame. As you can see, we did take a week off.
Jesus. Anyways, I do want to say though, at Disney California, because there's like 2 parks, right? There's Disney California Adventures, Disney, California Adventures, DCA, that's what they call it, and then it's Disney. I had more fun at Disney California just because I feel like that's more for like young adults to like maybe older people if you want to go with your girlfriend. But definitely if you go to Disney,
Doesn't look like he's in frame, so
okay,
you're
good.
probably good.
If you go to Disney, I would recommend taking either some type of younger sister, younger brother, or kids, because if you're like,
if you're an adult going alone to Disney, you're kind of weird. That's what he's trying to say. I have no problem saying it. My filter is
like if you're going with family,
relatively non-existent.
Like if you're going with family, first time experience with your family, go for it. But if you're going like by yourself or by like with your friend or something, definitely
if you're
keep an eye on those people.
I don't know, man. It's
I don't know,
because clinging to your childhood is, I understand, because childhood is a lot more fun than adulthood, for sure. Like, I think we can all agree that a childhood is a lot more fun than adulthood. However, there's a lot that you lose by clinging to childhood that you should have as an adult. For example, accountability. Children, like they aren't really responsible or accountable for much because like they're kids. Like they didn't choose to be here. They were brought into this world kind of against their will. I mean, not to say I don't love life, because I do love life, but at the same time, like if I could have just, I don't know. I don't know where I want to go with that. I don't know if I want to finish that statement, but you know, life kind of sucks sometimes.
Give me a break.
I need a break sometimes. But I love life, but at the same time, if I had to go back and choose whether or not I wanted to stay in heaven or be on earth, I might have chosen to stay in heaven. But anyways, yeah, there's some things that I think we are called to do that you can only do as an adult. And if you're clinging to childhood, you probably ain't going to do those things.
True.
That's the way I would put it. Maybe you're called to cling to childhood, but I highly doubt that. I'm sorry if that's your dream, is to be a child forever, but you're kind of weird for that. That's real sus. And I want to keep you away from my kids. That's for damn show. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Like, there's no such thing as a male nanny.
Yeah. I mean, Kim. I saw on Instagram that Kim Kardashian hired a manny, which is a male nanny, because she wants to have a good male role model for her children in the household. And if I got to explain to you why that's messed up, dog.
I'm sorry.
I'm so mad at that. I don't know if any of you guys follow me on Instagram, but it's Lemac_Zane, Zane. My first name is Lemac, Lemac. Yeah, I posted on my Instagram earlier this week about how the Kardashians have ruined an entire generation of women. We've talked about that before. It's true. And then the next day, I saw a post where Kim Kardashian was apparently talking to her daughter, Northwest, about what she does for work, and West was just like, "What do you do for work?" And I don't know. I thought it was funny. There was no, that wasn't the post that I ended up reposting. It was another one about how Kim was talking to her sister. I don't remember which other. I have negative words for the Kardashians. I don't know what sister she was talking to, but they were talking about how like performing traditional roles in the household. The children love that. And then how they love going to dad's house because dad's house is so simple. Like dad just has an apartment, and then they cook and do all these things that like normal people are doing. But like if you just had a regular ass normal relationship, or traditional, not even normal, because nowadays that's not normal. If you had a traditional relationship, children are loving that. And they're talking about, oh, North loves when they go to dad's house because he's in an apartment, and you know he's cooking, and we cook and have dinner, and we sit and talk and eat together. It's like,
sweetie, he's poor.
He's not really poor. He's
poor.
Just like doing regular stuff that like most people should be doing.
I feel like that's how
as a family, and the Kardashians are just not doing that. And
yeah, I saw a post about that.
It's exactly the opposite of what we were built to do and meant to do. And yeah,
where it
might have been my repost that you saw.
Maybe it's just like Kim says that Kanye has no nanny, no cook, no.
Yeah,
maid.
that's exactly the one that, or at least I think it was exactly the one that I posted.
And I was like, okay.
He does stuff himself. Wow, phenomenal, crazy. That's insane.
He's being a person.
He's being a human being. I mean, like by all means, props to him for doing stuff himself, because he could probably afford to hire someone to do all the stuff that he's doing with his kids. But by showing at being a billionaire like Kanye is, or at least was, and then proceeding to still do those things, it does a different thing for your children. Because one thing that I've read a lot of different books written by millionaires that are talking about all these different issues that they have now as millionaires that they didn't have when they were not millionaires. And one of those issues is how to raise your kids with the right values to make sure that your kids still understand hard work and discipline and all of these different things that you might understand a lot better if you had a harder upbringing growing up, or you had to do those different things, like get a job as a kid so that you can help mom pay the bills. A lot of people from tough backgrounds actually find success a lot easier than people that were raised in the Hamptons, for example, because they had to struggle. And so being a billionaire like Kanye is, and then still doing those things is apparently very positive for the children.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm all for it. Definitely. And, you know, the Kardashians talking about, oh, they love it at dad's house because dad does normal people stuff. It's like, well, yeah, kids like normal people stuff.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like it's like vice versa though. Like if you grew up like kind of like, I'm gonna say low income and like ghetto and stuff like that, and then you don't have to do anything, it feels nice. But then I feel like if you grew up in like really wealthy family and then you got to do things, it's like, it's kind of nice. It's like how would you call that? I was watching a comedy show yesterday, and he was kind of mentioning that too, how it's like a lot of people take what they have for granted. When for me, it's like, dude, this is awesome. Like he went to Canada, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, they were arguing that since Canada has legal weed now, they get treated a lot worse by the police. And then the guy's like, well, I live in Texas. If it was legal in Texas, for a little bit of like being treated like shit by the police, he's like, I'd take it. And you're like, it's kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like some people don't know what they have, or like they value more what they don't or what they do have. You know, maybe it's like a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but like I feel like those kids seeing like them doing normal things, it's like, man, we never experienced this, and this is actually kind of really fun. This is actually like feels great. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because like, well, doing work and reaping the like sowing seeds and reaping the rewards feels good.
Mm-hmm.
We're programmed to do work and reap the benefits of that work. That's just what human programming is, whether you're a hunter or a gatherer. Sowing seeds and reaping the benefits is naturally what you're supposed to do. And you're going to get a dopamine release from that.
Yeah.
If you're, you know, on your phone all day, jerking off all day, doing all kinds of hedonistic shit all day, then you're probably going to have fried dopamine receptors, and then sowing the seeds and reaping the benefits isn't going to feel as good. But if you are disciplined and you are doing the things that you probably should be doing, like not jerking off every day or all day, or not jerking off in general. If you're not drinking all day, if you're not doing coke all day, if you're not doing weed all day, like if you're doing what you should be doing, working hard and reaping the benefits of hard work that is going to progress your life forward, you're going to get a dopamine release from that, and your life is going to be better, so that tomorrow is going to be easier for you.
Definitely.
Or at least 5 years from now is going to be easier for you. Whereas if you're doing all those hedonistic activities right now, 5 years from now is going to be a lot harder for you.
Yeah.
Based on the evidence that I've seen, unless you got mommy and daddy's money. Yeah. In which case, tomorrow might still be easier for you. 5 years might still be easier for you. Hunter Biden looks like he's having a real easy life because mommy and daddy got money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel it's like eventually the time is going to end where like the people that are first are going to be last one day, and people that are last
absolutely.
Are first.
That's straight from the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember exactly where in the Bible that was said, but like I've been saying for a minute, I'm past the Gospels now. I think, where am I? I'm in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. No, I think I passed Corinthians. But I've been reading the Bible, listening to it at work. I'm in, where am I? James 2 is where I'm at, which is after Hebrews, which is, yeah, there's a lot. The Bible has a lot of books. I'm going to have to go through it again because I don't remember everything, but I'm very glad that I did this. Listening to the Bible has been great for my mental health.
That's
and
tough.
Orientation. It's okay.
It's not easy.
It's not easy for most people. For me, because of my circumstances, where I could listen to music, I could listen to podcasts, I could listen to audiobooks, I could do whatever I want while I'm at work as far as what I'm listening to goes. So I could have an earbud in while I'm working. So it's really easy for me to just put the Bible on instead of whatever other BS that I might want to listen to. So relative to other people's work environments, it's a lot easier for me to listen to the Bible.
And it's not hard either. I feel like you have time.
Once you start doing it, though, like everything else is kind of boring because like you hear little nuggets of wisdom that you're like, man, that was like, wow, I wish I had heard that a long time ago or something like, or like, man, that really applies to what I'm going through right now.
Wow.
And so like listening to it or reading it like actually opening the book and reading it hits different. Because at every point in your life, there's going to be some wisdom that applies to what you're going through right now. Because you're always going through something. Everybody's always going through some hardship of some sort. If you're doing anything worth doing in your life, you're probably going through hardship of some sort.
Yeah. Or God might have you in isolation for now.
Yeah.
Sometimes
maybe.
you might be isolated from a lot of people, a lot of things. And it's a reason, might be a time for you to kind of regroup and reorganize yourself with God, or, connection with him. If you've been lost for a little bit, maybe this is why things aren't working out. Like maybe it's like, oh, I was supposed to hang out with a group of friends, but then they bailed. Oh, I was supposed to go somewhere, but then it got canceled. Like, why am I feel like I'm so alone. Like, maybe it's your year of isolation. Maybe he's isolating you from all these other things because he wants you to reconnect or regroup with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you need to take advantage of that time, especially if you feel like you've been very isolated or alone.
Yeah. Or if you've been going down the wrong path and like subconsciously or even consciously, you knew it. You knew you were going down the wrong path and you were just like, it was so tempting. It was so fun. It was so this, and that you just, for one reason or another, couldn't bring yourself to stop. And then because of whatever circumstances, like getting removed from the friend group, or you, for whatever reason, found yourself in a situation where it was easier to stop doing those things that you knew you shouldn't do. And then you actually, you know what, I'm going to stop doing those things that I knew that I shouldn't have been doing. And, whatever hardships you may be going through. For example, like I was in a situation personally recently that has brought me closer to my faith that, while the situation itself sucked, I'm very glad that it happened. I'm glad that, I was involved with this person that I was involved with. And as much as it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and I was really hoping that it would work out the way I wanted it to, it didn't. And regardless of whatever happened there, I do know for a fact that this situation did bring me closer to God and made me more dedicated to my faith. And that's worth more than anything else. I mean, if you're a true believer, whether you're a believer or not, if you're not a believer, you may not relate to this part, but if you are a believer, you know that, enhancing your relationship with God is more important than any worldly benefit that you could receive from anything. So that's what that is. And, going through hardship, you're going to learn through struggle. And that's just how life is. You're going to learn through struggle. And if you're not struggling, you probably aren't doing stuff that you should be doing. If your life is easy, it's because the devil is like, hey, he's good. I don't need to attack him.
Yeah, pretty much.
A lot of times, like when you're getting attacked and you're going through hardship, it's because you're doing something right. Like there's an analogy. A bomber only gets flak when he's over the target. If you're in a jet or a plane that's doing bombing runs, you're only going to get shot at when you're over the target that you're trying to bomb. So that means you're on target. You're in the right place. You're where you should be going because you're getting shot at.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you should just keep going. Now, that's not exactly the best analogy. Maybe there are better analogies, but that's a pretty dang good one, in my opinion.
No, definitely.
Yeah. If you're catching flack, it's probably because you're over the target.
Yep.
And, the devil attacks when you're doing the right things. When you're doing what he wants you to do, he's going to let you do what you want to do. He's not going to put challenges in your way to make it harder for you to do the things he wants you to do.
Yeah. Or sometimes it might just be God too. He wants you to level up.
Shoot, Job is a great example of that. Job was God's greatest servant, and the devil was like, hey, I bet I can get him to betray you. And God was like, bet. And Job went through some hard stuff, man. He lost his family, his wife, his kids, his wealth. He had, back in the day, it was like cattle and sheep and all that land, whatever. He was in good health, all these different things that were going for him. And then he got hit with wife is dead, family's dead. Like his kids were killed in an avalanche or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. Maybe there were some marauders that killed his kids, but so he lost his family, just dead, and then he lost his cattle and his sheep. They were stolen from him, and then he lost his health. He got like leprosy or something like that. And this one's mine. I'm a little loud, aren't I?
Yeah,
a little loud. Sorry, guys. I speak loudly.
Spitting.
I get excited, man. You know, I'm talking about the word of God.
No, for real. I tell you.
But no, Job's story is tough, man. Like for no reason whatsoever, he got attacked in all kinds of different ways and didn't lose his faith. And at the end of the story is rewarded for that. He gets a new family and new wealth and land and cattle and sheep and all of these different things because he never lost his faith. And he was cursing himself. He was like, man, I cursed the day I was born. Like, I wish I just wouldn't have been born. He never ended up, ending his own life. He never ended up cursing God, and he was rewarded for that, both on earth and in heaven. And that's a really good story as far as like just understanding resilience,
It's tough.
personal resilience. Because I don't know if I could go through all that. I don't know if I could lose my wife and my family and my sheep and my, like, all of my wealth, my business wealth, you could say. I mean, I don't have much business wealth right now, and I don't have a family of my own. So who knows what I'm working my ass off to get all of those things. And if I were to get those things and then lose those things, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could be as strong as Job was.
That's tough.
Straight up. I do not know that I could do that. I would hope that I could do that, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's tough.
A lot of people like to think that they can handle that and probably go through that.
Most people say they can.
No, I don't think so though. I don't think I could.
I don't know if I could.
Maybe.
I'd like to think that I could. I'd like to think that I'm strong enough that I would do that.
Yes. I feel like every man at least thinks that they are tough enough to hold back on something. But it's like, if someone takes your wife, someone takes your kids, someone takes something or takes almost your life, but leaves you just like barely on the last health bar.
That's a good analogy.
It's like
1 HP in a dream, dog.
Yeah. It's like, you think are you going to like not just curse God, but like, are you going to want to seek revenge? Are you going to want to?
That's exactly what I was going to get into, is like, if I were in that position, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't curse God, because I don't know if I would or not. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't. I'd like to think that I wouldn't. But I know that if someone were to kill my family, vengeance is the Lord's, or what's the scripture? I think, let go of wrath, for vengeance is the Lord's. I think that's the scripture. I can look it up real quick. But I know for a fact that I'd be seeking to be John Wick on them mofos. I would not want to let the Lord have vengeance. I would be wanting to take that for myself. And would I act on it? I don't know. I do not know.
It's tough, especially it's nowadays. Hard to say. It's very tough.
Yeah, knowing what kind of evil is out there, and depending on what kind of evil finds my family. If it were to find my family, God, I pray that it doesn't. But the kind of evil that's out there, the Epstein type of evil. That type of stuff, if that were to find my family, I don't know what I would do.
Well, not just Epstein, but like just Epstein, like, people that are coming into your home and just trying to destroy, like,
I just mean that brand, that type of evil, not necessarily Epstein himself or the people that were affiliated with him, but that type of stuff. If that type of stuff were to feel my family,
that gives me chills, like down my spine, like that. That'd be scary. That'd be scary. Bro,
Let's see.
There's times where I'm like, I go through TikTok and I find videos of like people meeting up with like kids, or like, it's all like a setup, and it's like this grown ass man or like this grown ass kid. It's like, bro, that just gives me like, makes my stomach drop, because like some of these people that they catch are either like they're like either like regular people that you think that you work with and stuff. It's like, oh, it's a teacher, oh, it's a parent, oh, it's a like a professional, like even a cop dude or an army person, like, and I'm just like, bro, that's just wild. Like, I don't know, like fuck, man. Is it like, Chris Hemsworth? Is that his name? No.
Chris Hemsworth?
Is that the guy that walks in?
Oh, Chris Hansen.
Yeah, Chris Hansen.
Speaking of which, the Chris Hansen from the Boondocks meme.
Oh my god.
Hang on. I know we're talking about
Chris
some spiritual stuff, but I don't know if you guys have seen the Boondocks. The Boondocks is one of my favorite Adult Swim shows. Hilarious. This dude is he's really, I think in the show, he was pretending to be a child predator because he had a thing for Chris Hansen. It's hilarious. Look up Boondocks, Chris Handsome. Handsome, like as in a person that is handsome. Look up Chris Handsome, Boondocks, and laugh because that is hilarious. But anyways, go back to what you were saying.
No, I just think like every time I come across these videos on TikTok, it brings me chills on my spine. I'm like, man, I'm afraid of having kids, and then that happening, or like a daughter. Fuck, man.
That would be that would be my worst fear.
Like, it just scares me because it's like there's real people out there like that, and it's fucking scary. Like, that's my biggest fear. Like, having a kid, like a daughter or something, and then like they go over to like someone's house thinking it's another kid, and it's this fucking grown ass man or some shit.
So for me, I'm not necessarily scared of evil finding my children. Of course, I am, but at the same time, I know that there is evil in the world, and evil will find your children in one way, shape, or form. Evil's found me. Evil's found all of us in one way, shape, or form. That it's a given that evil will find you or your kids or your family members, whoever. You're going to deal with evil at some point in your life. For me, it's more terrifying because of exactly what I said before, and I found the verse in the Bible, Romans 12:9. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. For me, the self-control required to let the Lord have his vengeance and not take it for myself is the scary part, because there's not really any coming back from that. You'd have to be like super genius level person to be able to pull that off, where you go and find the people that did what they did, and then get your revenge and then also get away with it. Like, that's movie level stuff that almost never happens. To not seek and find that revenge for myself would be challenging. Would be very challenging. Yeah. That's the part that I would have. That's the part I have fear of over. Not necessarily that evil will find my children, because to be afraid that evil will find your children is an excuse to not have children, and God commands us to be fruitful and multiply. And we need to be fruitful and multiply, especially in today's day and age where our birth rate is below replacement, and there's a lot of people just not having kids because they think the world's overpopulated, which is just not true. And it's just, we need to have kids, and we need to instill our children with the right values, not give them over to the state, where the state indoctrinates them in the schools. Thank God for my parents who did not let me get indoctrinated. Very happy about that. I did go to a public school, so like totally they were trying, but my parents were very adamant about teaching me the right things.
I think I was pretty open-minded. Like I left room for I don't know. Ever since I was like in middle school, elementary school, I felt like there was more than just your sciences and everything, which is amazing, But like, I always felt there was more than just that. Definitely, I was very God driven, especially when I was like a little younger.
That's a blessing.
Like ever since I was like a little kid, like I've always been like, there's always been something there with me and God. Mm-hmm. And then I'll save it for next podcast, but the way I met God is just amazing. I think I might have talked about this too.
I don't know for sure if you have.
I don't
but
remember.
if you want to save it for next podcast.
Yeah, I'll save it for next podcast.
Okay. Because
like I called out, when people say, seek and you will find, or, if you ask, you will be given.
Ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. I don't know if that's in the right order, but that's basically what it is.
I did all that. I literally called out to God. I'm like, if you're really out there, this is me being like someone that was in the middle of between, like, is it true? Is it not true? It feels like there's no point of living type of thing. And it's like, I wasn't like suicidal or anything. I was just like, I'm really starting to see life as pointless. And this was me like freshman year. And I was just like, if you're really out there, change my life or do something or use me. And then a week later, I'm enrolled into this church that I'm like super like deep into God and connected. And then like halfway through the years of me being in this church, I was like, oh man, he literally answered my prayers. It's wild.
That would be a very good thing to go in depth into.
Oh, I will.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely will.
Because I've got a story of my own that's not exactly the same, but it's my personal experience where I'm like, okay, God is real kind of thing, where I felt the presence of God in my life, that I was like, yeah, this is real. Because I was raised in the church. My dad played drums for the church. I was in church pretty much every Sunday for the most part up until I was about in 4th grade. And then from there, it was like church and God was still very strong in my life, but I just wasn't going to church as frequently.
And it's funny. One thing I want to add, though, I feel like a lot of people that are young, this goes over a lot to all young folks out there. Because I know when I was like in high school or like out of high school, I was like, oh, like once I get older, it'll be easier to follow God. Oh, once I get older, I'll get serious with God. And it's not true, dude. It is not true.
I mean, it is and it isn't, because like similar, I wasn't necessarily like, oh, I'll find God when I find him. It was more like, yeah, I believe, but I haven't really seen anything yet that like really, really convinces me. But I believed because I was raised in it and whatever. But I had an experience at about, I think I was like 19 or 20 years old that I was just like, oh man, I really felt the Holy Ghost and the Holy Spirit like talking to me. Like I felt a voice from God. And we could talk about that later.
Yeah, same here. I've got so many stories, bro. I think working on a farm,
that helps.
God spoke.
Working in nature is something that a lot of people, that working in nature or being in nature is something that brings a lot of people closer to God.
You really have to have an ear, or you really have to have like some type, like you have to like hear God. And like you might, if you're like a person that doesn't believe, or a person that doesn't really seek God, even, no one's perfect in the world, but like still, like you should be able to hear God. And I heard him so clearly, like when I used to work on a farm, when I used to like, just like, again, this is going to be for another podcast because it's going to take forever. Like some of the details are just phenomenal. I'm like, oh my God, like I felt that. And, sometimes I'll listen, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll be like, that's crazy. But I was like, man, that should really
that flesh resistance.
No, literally, it's true.
That's a thing.
It's true.
But okay, so one thing that kind of not off topic necessarily, it's just a different topic that still kind of relates. We have been not really on topic, not really on brand for the last few podcasts. We've gotten a little too political, a little too much. We don't want this to be a political opinion show. No. One, because that's boring for most people. Most people are not very well read into politics. And honestly, we don't know everything that we should know to be talking about the things that we're talking about. For example, when I said that Israel invaded Palestine, I said that, apparently, my buddy told me, he was like, did you just say Israel invaded Palestine? I was like, hang on, bro, listen. I might have said that. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, that's an example of, we maybe shouldn't be getting too deep in the weeds on politics. One, because that's not our wheelhouse. Two, that's not why we set out to build this podcast. The reason we set out to build this podcast is to transform our generation and future generations of men into fully optimized versions of themselves. We have not been focused on that mission as much as we should have been. And that's really important because as we've talked about multiple times over the last, year and some change that we've been running this podcast, those of you that have been listening, you know that was our original goal.
Right.
And lately it's been a lot more political than it should be. We talked about some interesting things. I really liked our Yuri Bezmenov interview, not interview, but podcast, where I was breaking down his interview and talking about what all that means as far as the government taking over and Marxism and communism, all that stuff. And that was an important episode, but it wasn't necessarily on brand with masculinity and building men to be better versions of themselves. So we are trying to kind of reorient ourselves and refocus on that original goal. And so with that goal, what we're trying to do is foster the development of young men and act as role models for those that have none, because there are a lot of young men out there with no father figure or piss poor father figures,
or just grew up in a very misguided father figure. Like, the way that their parents taught them has been trickling down to you, and now you have picked up bad morals or bad views of things.
Yeah.
And we want to change that because some of that stuff isn't, high quality thinking or high quality mindset, and to become a better version of yourself.
Yes. Like for example, a lot of people think that to be a man is to just be a bullheaded asshole sometimes. And, that's just not quite the case. And that's where we're ending up with things like toxic masculinity from the feminist movement, where they're saying that masculinity is toxic. Masculinity itself is not toxic. It's
masculine or not.
It's the benefits of being a man, and there are benefits to being a man, there are benefits to being a woman. It's the physical benefits, the physical attributes, better physical strength. There's a little bit of stubbornness. There are all kinds of different things that are generally more male traits that can be abused, that can be used in wrong ways, that are typically masculine. Testosterone gives you a lot of different attributes, like maybe being a little quick to anger. But if you're quick to anger about the wrong things, that's where you can get toxic masculinity, I guess you could say, as people call it. But if there is such a thing as righteous anger, for example, when people do things to children that we don't like, that's a good reason to be angry. And if you're a masculine man, you should be angry about that. And maybe I say maybe because vengeance is the Lord's, and as much as I would not like it to just be the Lord's, it is the Lord's. And so I'm trying not to take vengeance into my own hands. I don't need to be Batman. Exactly. We on the same wavelength.
Sorry. No, but yeah.
We don't need to be vigilantes here. It's dangerous. Try not to do that as much as you might want to, because I understand wanting to very well. Trust me. But at the same time, there is, like I was saying, a righteous anger towards those that do things that they shouldn't be doing, especially to the people they shouldn't be doing them to. That's a very vague description, but you understand what I mean. And so, yes, fostering the development of young men and acting as role models for those that have none is very important to us. Hopefully they're listening to the podcast, but we have some other plans in the pipelines to be examples and show masculinity in a positive light in ways that are more than just the podcast. We can get into those. I'd rather not talk about them. I'd rather do them because we've done a lot of talking and not a lot of doing, aside from, going to work and showing up every day. But it's a lot harder to show that. I can't just record myself at work building beams. As much as some of you might like that, company policy type stuff prevents me from doing that. So I can't really show blue collar work and working my butt off every day, Saturdays and Sundays, some days, and just working a lot of hours, doing what men should be doing, is working a lot. As a young man, especially if you don't have a family yet and you don't have a lot of responsibilities that come with being a grown man, you should be, as a young man, putting a lot of time and energy into building yourself into the type of person that A, is a strong man, and then B, when you do have a family and kids, you can actually afford to spend the time that you want to spend with your kids because you did all the work beforehand. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to do right now, and that's what I hope that a lot of young men will understand from A, this podcast, and B, a lot of the other stuff that we're planning on doing in the future.
Yep. It's very important. A lot of people, you might not think about it when you're young, but man, working with some older folks and you know, doing a valet job, and they're like in their 40s and they're working with a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, or even, I think it was like 19, 20. And they told me something like, dude, start saving now. He's like, trust me. You want to start saving now. You want to put some money aside because, 1, you never know what can happen. 2, you might have a kid. 3, you're definitely going to want to prepare for your future. And that comes with a lot of responsibility and work. And I think those were probably like the greatest, probably the best advice I've ever gotten in my life. Like, yeah, I heard it from my parents and stuff like that, but they just kind of told me as like a discipline lesson. Like, oh, you can't be wasting your money. And like, it was more like stop being dumbass.
It's a lot harder to hear some things from your parents than it is to hear from other men that are just trying to do their best, mm-hmm. that you see like, maybe I do or don't want to end up like them, mm-hmm. and they give you some wisdom and you're like, man, my parents said that. Now coming from you, it's a little bit different just because like you're not my parent. You have no reason to tell me what to do, but you're telling me this thing that my parents also said. Mm-hmm. And so for some reason, I don't know what it is, because there are a lot of lessons I learned from whether it's people I know or like Jordan Peterson or whoever it might be, that my parents told me the same thing, but for some reason listening to my parents, it just didn't click. It didn't hit the same.
Yep.
But then hearing it from them, it's like, okay, maybe I should pay attention to this lesson.
That's why we encourage that you guys have a group of friends or men, and then you guys connect on each other, relate on each other, kind of like go back and forth, ask for advice. Because if you tell it to your wife or your girlfriend, that's probably not the best advice or feedback you want to get. You know, yeah, there's some things you're supposed to talk with your woman, and then there's other things you just talk with your boys. Because
women have a different worldview than men, and they have different opportunities. They have different experiences that allow them to look at the world in a different way than men look at. It's not worse. It's not better. It's just a different worldview because men and women are different, and they have different advantages. They have different disadvantages, and generally just different experiences and perspectives. And so as a man, it's, if you tell a woman all your problems, it's like if you take your armor off in front of a woman, this is metaphorical armor. Women are incentivized to test that armor because they need a strong man for their own protection as well as for the protection of their offspring. And so if you are taking your armor off in front of a woman that you want to be a man for, she's probably going to test you with your armor off. She's going to test you regardless, but when your armor is off is when you least want to be tested. And if your armor is off and she tests you, she might hit a very sensitive spot and you might react to that. And so generally, unless you and your woman are very, very strong in the Word of God, you may not want to take your armor off with your woman. But if you're with your boys, your homies, like these are your ride or die brothers, men understand male sensitivity a lot better, and they're less likely, they're a lot more sensitive to, oh, he's being vulnerable with me right now. Let me not be an asshole. But also when you're talking to the boys and they're an asshole to you, as you're sharing a sensitive topic, it's a little bit easier to take because you're not as invested in like, I'm trying to sleep with this person, or like generally that's not the case. You're not trying to sleep with the homies, hopefully. Pause. So generally it's not going to hit as hard. It's not going to hit you as sensitively as it would if it's coming from a woman that you really care about. So it's a lot easier to share those sensitive, like, hey, I'm going through this thing. And then the homies are going to tell you what you need to do about this thing that you're having trouble with. And it's not going to hit as hard. Plus, your girl knows more about you than your homies do typically. if it's like, if this is really your girl that you've been with for a while, she's going to know certain things about you that your homies don't know, that you would never tell your homies, but you told your girl. And now that your armor's off, she's going to use that against you. Unfortunately, that's just how women are, because they test you. And that's kind of what they're meant to do. That's God, when he made Eve to be a helpmeet, and a helpmeet in the original Hebrew translation is a beneficial adversary. And sometimes, especially with women that are not as yoked in the word of God as they should be, they're less beneficial, and they're just an adversary sometimes. And so, yeah, you need to be careful with that part of relationships. But anyways, so the next bullet point that we want to focus on, as far as the goal for this podcast and the goal for Some Young Guys as a brand, is to define and exemplify true masculinity in a world that seeks to destroy it. Now, this is where we get into the political topics that we were talking about before, because the political world really does play into masculinity, because it's very clear that they're trying to destroy masculinity in this day and age.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. The dog is doing dog stuff. He's being a dog.
He's on top of his kennel.
Yeah, he's playing with some plastic. Anyways, the world is trying to destroy masculinity because, and not necessarily the world, it's, spiritual wickedness in high places, to quote, I believe it was Ephesians that said that. But there are people in power, like the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum, that are doing things and instituting policies that at the end of the day do damage masculinity. And we want to not let that happen. And so that's where the conversations about politics come into play. But like I said before, we were getting a little too heavy into politics, and that's not quite the direction we want to completely go into. It's not a political opinion show, but we want to be aware of that. And so we're leaving room for that in our mission statement, is to allow a conversation for what is happening politically in the world and how it affects us as men, and how it affects the future of society and humanity as a whole when it comes to men and women and our relationships with each other. And then finally, our last point here is to open the minds of young men to experiencing life and all it has to offer. Now, this is where we get into the more fun stuff, like building cars, going snowboarding, talking to people on the street about, like, hey, do you think that men are this way? Do you think women are this way? What do you look for in a man? What do you look for in a woman? That type of stuff, where it's a little bit more entertaining. You get into the more fun conversations. You get into the more fun side of masculinity and gender roles, and just being a person, and, enjoying life, and ideally, hopefully, destroying the stigmas that certain groups of people might have about certain things. Because one of my least favorite things, as we were writing all these points down, I brought up the point about how in the Black community, there's a lot of things that are seen as like white people shit. And I really, really despise that viewpoint that the Black community has towards certain activities, whether it's like snowboarding or skiing or I don't know, skydiving or cliff jumping. Like, obviously there's some dangerous activities that maybe you just don't want to do because you're more risk averse. That's totally fine. But categorizing it as white people shit is
not true.
Not very beneficial to your life goals, because say you're trying to start a business and you see someone out there that you would like to do business with, but they do something that's considered white people shit and you have no experience with that whatsoever. If you try and have a conversation with them from the perspective of that's white people shit, they're just going to disregard your opinion because they think you're stupid now. Mm-hmm. But B, if you're like, man, I've never done that before, I wish I had, you haven't done that before, and you wish you had, you're not going to be able to relate with that person. And you might be able to use that experience that you've had doing that thing that they like doing as a way to, start conversation and build a genuine relationship, so that in the future, maybe you can do business with that person. And that's where the opening the minds of young men to experiencing life really comes into play and really becomes important, because it develops you as a person that is interesting, and you can develop relationships with more interesting people that have different worldviews than you.
Yeah, definitely. It just makes you a lot more, like you said, interesting. It opens doors for you to have better conversations, or open a conversation, or be like, hey, I heard you you like snowboarding. You're like, I actually like snowboarding too. Like, I think we should like take a trip sometime and get up there. It makes you a lot more comfortable with whoever you're trying to make business with. You know, it would be awkward if you try to make business with someone you barely get along with, or like just awkward silence, or like just I don't feel comfortable.
If you have nothing to relate with that person, or nothing to relate to with that person, it's going to be very hard to have a relationship of any significance. Because oftentimes when it comes to a business relationship, you need to develop a personal relationship before you ever get into the business relationship. I mean, through a lot of the books that I've read, as far as when it comes to building businesses, there are some relationships that have made millions of dollars for people that didn't really get into business things for like 12 months of knowing each other.
Yeah.
They just had conversations. How are the kids? What's going on in your life? That type of thing for 12 months before they ended up actually getting into business topics and developing a business relationship. Because they need, if I'm going to build a business with someone, I want to know who that person is. Like, I want to know that they're not going to screw me over. I want to know that they're not a con artist before actually getting into business with them.
Yeah.
And like, some of the best ways to do that is to be interesting enough that they want to have a relationship with you, and then you can relate to them, and you can build a relationship together to actually start a business.
Yeah,
it's okay. The dog be doing dog stuff.
Make yourself interesting. You know, it'll be learn something, learn a skill, learn something that makes you like someone be like, oh wow, dude, I didn't know you know how to do that.
It's about having value to offer to a person.
Sorry.
That's what it is. That's really what the whole thing is you need to be valuable to them in either a personal setting, a relationship setting. You need to offer some sort of value to them so that you can get the value that you need to get from them. And that's not necessarily to be a transactional relationship. This dog, man. It's not necessarily to make all your relationships transactional, but if you want to be successful in any type of way, you need to be able to offer value. And then the people that have value that you're offering value to are going to be incentivized to offer you value in return. Because oftentimes if you're giving value to someone, they're going to feel uncomfortable getting value without giving value. And so they're going to want to give value most of the time. Sometimes people will just take advantage of the value that you're giving, but that's a different topic.
I'm back.
He is back. He dealt with the dog. Dog is dealt with.
He's out.
But yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm not gonna lie. I really gotta pee.
Okay, I think we should end it because I gotta get ready.
You do gotta get ready. It's been an hour. I was really thinking of doing like 30 to 45 minutes, but
Same.
It's been 52 minutes. And I think we covered a lot of really good stuff today.
Yeah, we did.
Got very spiritual, got very in the word, and then at the end there talked about business and the future of some young guys.
So in conclusion, we are reorganized. We are going back to our roots and what we really want to put out there.
Absolutely.
We just want to let you guys know that because I know we kind of strayed away from some stuff, and I think us sitting down, reorganizing, talking, and falling back into what we were really trying to push, and sharing our thoughts of what we should do, really kind of put us back in order. And we're going to try to promise and stay on track.
We're going to do what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
And it may be a little sloppy at first, but we'll get it down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're only a year in. A lot of businesses fail in the first few years, and we're not going to fail. That is one thing that we will not do, is fail. And the only way you fail is by giving up after you fail.
Yep.
Because then you really do fail. If you give up after the first failure or the second or the third or the fourth, because there are a lot of failures, then you fail. But if you don't give up, you can just keep trying and trying and trying and trying and trying until you find something that succeeds.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what we're going to do.
Yep.
And no matter how long it takes, we're going to keep trying. All right. It's been Some Young Guys, just trying to solve the world's problems in a podcast.
Once again, guys, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
My name is
Lemac.
Oh.
My bad, dog.
Damn, we're rusty, bro.
A little bit.
All right. Carlos.
Lemac.
Thanks for joining us again.
Peace.
Peace.